My name is Alexandra, and I'm a 32-year-old woman trapped in an electric nightmare of my own making. The trouble started ironically with something as innocent as childhood friendship. Bella and I grew up together, as close as sisters. Our bond formed in the sandbox and sealed over scraped knees and shared secrets. She was the calm to my storm, the poised figure amidst my chaotic energy. But as we grew, I watched Bella transform like a butterfly, but into someone I barely recognized. I remember the day it changed. We were 12, sitting in my cluttered bedroom surrounded by video games and comic books. Bella, twirling a lock of her hair, said, "Alex, do you ever think about being popular, like being one of those girls everyone admires?" I had laughed it off, but Bella hadn't. As the years rolled on, she morphed into the epitome of teenage allure. Her smile could stop boys mid-sentence, and her laugh became a siren song in the hallways of our high school. She was worshipped, and with that worship, she changed. The sweet girl I knew was replaced by someone who saw friendship as a ladder to climb, each rung a step further away from me. But even as we drifted apart, she never turned her venom on me. She'd saunter into my world, dropping her queenly facade, and ask for my advice on boys, as if we were still those little girls sharing secrets in a treehouse. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. Life took us in different directions after high school. I ventured off to New York for college, embracing the chaos of the city, while Bella stayed back, reigning over our small town like the provincial queen. It wasn't until years later, after I had returned home and started dating Mark, that Bella and I truly collided again. Mark was everything I had ever wanted in a partner, kind, attentive, and with a smile that could light up the darkest of my days. I introduced him to my family with a heart full of hope, not knowing that this would be the beginning of my undoing. It was a chance encounter. Bella, as if summoned by some wicked twist of fate, appeared at my doorstep, just as Mark and I were leaving. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over him. "Is this the famous Mark?" she asked, a hint of something sinister in her tone. "Yeah, this is him," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. Bella's gaze lingered on Mark a moment too long before she flashed a predatory smile. "Well, are you going to introduce me properly, Alex?" The unease that had started as a mere flutter in my heart grew into a storm as I watched Bella weave her web around Mark. She was a master at this game, her words honeyed, and her laughs perfectly timed. Mark, bless him, was oblivious to the danger. He was just being polite, but to Bella, politeness was an invitation. A few days later, I arranged for the three of us to meet at a cafe, thinking it would put my mind at ease. How wrong I was. As Mark excused himself to the restroom, Bella leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Alex, I have to tell you something. I think I'm falling for Mark." I stared at her, the words not quite making sense. "What are you talking about, Bella?" Her eyes, dark and serious, met mine. "I can't help it. He's just so perfect." It felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal wrapped in velvet. I wanted to scream to call her out, but the fear of losing Mark silenced me. I forced a smile, a mask to hide the crumbling world inside me. "Stop joking, Bella. That's not funny." She laughed, a sound that was once comfort, now a harbinger of my impending heartache. "Relax, Alex. I'm not going to steal your boyfriend. It's just a little crush." But as I sat there watching her watch him, I knew it was more than a crush. Bella didn't do things by halves. She was a storm, and she was about to break everything in her path. The cafe was bustling with the usual morning crowd, a cacophony of clinking cups and casual chatter. Mark, Bella, and I found a quiet corner. I could feel the weight of Bella's gaze, heavy and unsettling, as she studied Mark with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "So, Mark, Alex tells me you're a doctor. That must be fascinating," Bella began, her voice dripping with faint innocence. Mark, ever the humble, nodded. "It has its moments, but it's just a job at the end of the day. Bella's laugh was a melody designed to ensnare. Just a job. Saving lives sounds more like a superhero's work to me. I watched, a silent spectator in a play I never wanted to attend. Mark was oblivious to the undercurrents, responding with polite but disinterested answers. But Bella, she was relentless. Each word, each gesture, was a calculated move in her game of seduction as the conversation drifted. I felt an increasing sense of isolation. It was as if I were a ghost at my own table, unseen and unheard. When Mark excused himself, Bella turned to me, her mask slipping slightly. "Alex, aren't you worried?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Worried about what?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Bella leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper, "That someone might take him away from you. Someone like me." The raw honesty in her words struck me. This was no joke or playful banter. "Bella, what has gotten into you?" "He's my boyfriend," I said, my voice tinged with disbelief and hurt. She shrugged, a predator confident in her prowess. "I can't help who I fall for, Alex. And let's be honest, you and Mark? I give it 6 months. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her for her betrayal, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I sat there paralyzed by the realization that the childhood friend I once knew was long gone. Mark returned, oblivious to the tension. As we left the cafe, Bella's parting words were a knife in my back. "Let's do this again soon. I'd love to get to know Mark better." The ride home was a silent one. Mark, unaware of the storm brewing, chatted about mundane things. But my mind was elsewhere, trapped in a whirlpool of betrayal and fear. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. Bella had thrown down the gauntlet, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. She wanted a war. She would get one. But unlike her, I would play the long game. I would wait, watch, and when the time was right, I would strike. Bella may have been the queen of manipulation, but I had a few tricks up my sleeve too. In the quiet darkness of my room, a plan began to take shape, a plan that would bring Bella's world crashing down around her. It was a dangerous path, one that could destroy everything I held dear. But I was past the point of no return. Bella had made this personal, and I was going to make sure she regretted it. The days that followed were a blur of unease and suspicion. Mark, caught up in his work, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Bella, on the other hand, seemed to be everywhere, a constant looming presence in my life. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when my fears were confirmed. Walking down the familiar streets of our town, I saw them. Bella and Mark, strolling together, lost in conversation. They looked comfortable, too comfortable with each other. My heart pounded against my chest as I approached them. "Mark, Bella," I called out, my voice shaking. They turned, surprise etched on their faces. Mark's expression changed to one of concern as he saw my distress. "Alexandra, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping towards me. "Why are you two together?" The words tumbled out, a mix of accusation and disbelief. Bella's face was a mask of faint. The high school reunion was supposed to be a night of nostalgia, a chance to relive the carefree days of youth. Instead, it became a battleground the moment I entered the decorated gymnasium. I knew I had walked into enemy territory. There she was, Bella, holding court in the center of the room, radiant and confident, basking in the admiration of our former classmates. The sight of her stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me: anger, betrayal, and a burning desire for retribution. I tried to keep a low profile, sticking to the fringes, but fate had other plans. "Hey, Alexandra, over here. Come sit with us," called out an old classmate, waving enthusiastically. Before I could decline, I was swept up in a tide of people and deposited right next to Bella. Her smile was a masterclass in duplicity. "Alexandra, darling, it's been too long," she said, her eyes glinting with unspoken triumph. I forced a smile, keeping my voice even. Yes, Bella, it's been a while. The evening wore on, a parade of small talk and reminiscing. Bella played the part of the beloved high school idol flawlessly, her every word and gesture seemingly perfect. But I knew better. Beneath that polished exterior was the heart of a viper. As the conversation shifted to life updates, I braced myself. So, Alexandra, what's new with you? Still with Mark? Bella asked, her voice honeyed with false concern. The question was a knife and she wielded it expertly. No, Bella. Mark and I are no longer together, I replied, keeping my emotions in check. Bella's expression was one of feigned shock. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm sure a catch like you won't be single for long. Her words were a performance for the audience we had. I could feel the eyes of our classmates on us, sensing the undercurrents of tension. I'm focusing on myself right now, Bella. Relationships aren't a priority, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. Bella laughed, a sound that set my teeth on edge. Oh, Alex, always the independent one. But you know what they say, the clock is ticking. Her insinuation was clear, a barbed reminder of societal expectations. I felt a flush of anger but held it back. Now was not the time for an outburst. The night dragged on, a torturous affair of forced smiles and polite applause. Later that night, as I lay in bed, Bella's words echoed in my mind. She had taken pleasure in my pain, reveling in my discomfort. But as I closed my eyes, a plan began to form. Bella thought she had won, but the game was far from over. I would take my time crafting a revenge that would leave no doubt about who the true victor was. Bella had made a grave mistake in underestimating me, and she would soon learn just how costly that mistake was. The confrontation with Bella at my parents' house was unexpected, explosive. She arrived unannounced, her face twisted in a mix of anger and desperation. "What do you want, Bella?" I asked, my voice cool, as I opened the door to her furious knocking. "I want my money, Alexandra. The money you owe me," she spat, her eyes blazing. Confusion swept over me. "Money? What are you talking about? I don't owe you anything." "Don't play dumb. The $600,000 you took from Mark, you're going to pay it back." Bella's accusation was ludicrous, yet her conviction was unsettling. "Bella, you've lost your mind. I never took any money from Mark," I countered, struggling to maintain my composure in the face of her absurd claim. Her laugh was bitter, filled with contempt. "Oh, please, you think I don't know about the debts? Mark told me everything. You bled him dry with your extravagant lifestyle, and now I'm paying for it." The pieces clicked into place, a sickening realization dawning on me. Mark's financial troubles, which he had always been so vague about, were now being twisted into a weapon by Bella. "Bella, listen to yourself. You're being played. I never took any money from Mark. This is his doing, not mine." I tried to reason with her, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Save it, Alexandra. I know your type, always playing the victim." "Well, not anymore. You're going to pay back every cent, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." Bella's threat was laced with venom, her desperation turning to malice as she stormed off. I stood there shaken but resolute. This was no longer just about a broken heart or a tarnished friendship. This was war. Over the next few days, I began to gather information, digging into Mark's financial history. It didn't take long to uncover a trail of deceit and manipulation. He was in deep, and he'd had dragged Bella down with him. Armed with this knowledge, I arranged a meeting with Bella. We met at a quiet park, away from prying eyes. She arrived, her usual confidence replaced with a wary defensiveness. "Bella, I'm not here to fight. I have something you need to see," I said, extending an envelope towards her. She took it hesitantly, her eyes scanning the documents inside. As the truth dawned on her, her face paled, the realization of Mark's betrayal hitting her like a physical blow. This can't be," she stammered, her facade crumbling. "I was never the enemy, Bella. It was Mark all along. He used us both. I said, not without a tinge of sympathy. For a moment, there was a flicker of the old Bella, the friend I once knew, but it was quickly snuffed out, replaced by a hardened, bitter shell. This changes nothing between us, Alexandra. You may not have taken the money, but you're still the reason my life is in shambles, she said, her voice cold as she walked away. I knew that our bridge was burnt, but I also knew that justice, in its own twisted way, had been served. Bella had been humbled, her illusions shattered, and while it brought me no joy, it was a necessary closure. I walked away from the park, a sense of finality washing over me. The chapter of Bella and Mark was closed, but my story was far from over. Life has a way of coming full circle. Standing in my new home, a modest yet cozy place filled with love and laughter, I couldn't help but reflect on the tumultuous journey that had led me here. I had moved on, found love again with someone who valued the simplicity of life as much as I did. We had a beautiful son whose innocent laughter was a balm to the scars of my past. Yet, the echoes of the past still lingered. News of Bella reached me, a bitter reminder of the storm we had weathered. Her fall from grace was as swift as it was severe. After the truth about Mark's deceit and her own misplaced accusations came to light, her life unraveled. The queen bee of our small town had lost her sting, her followers dissipating as quickly as they had gathered. I heard she moved into a small, run-down apartment, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she once boasted. Her dreams of a grand wedding and a life of luxury with Mark had crumbled to dust, leaving her with a harsh dose of reality. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall. There was no satisfaction in seeing the once mighty Bella reduced to a shadow of her former self. If anything, it was a somber reminder of how fragile our perceptions of happiness can be. "Mommy, look!" My son's voice pulled me from my reverie, his small hands tugging at my skirt. In his hands, he held a drawing, a crude depiction of our family. It was us, him, me, and my partner, all smiles and stick figures. "It's beautiful, honey," I said, scooping him into my arms. His laughter filled the room, a sound so pure and full of life. As I put him to bed that night, I realized that this was what true happiness looked like. It wasn't about status, money, or revenge. It was about the simple moments, the ones that often go unnoticed. Lying in bed, I thought about Bella one last time. Our friendship, once a source of comfort and joy, had become a battlefield of envy and betrayal. But it had also taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the power of letting go. I hoped in time Bella would find her own path to redemption. Perhaps one day she would understand that the ordinary life she once scorned was, in fact, a life filled with extraordinary moments. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a silent wish for her, a wish for peace, for growth, and for the wisdom to see the beauty in life's simplicity. The story of Bella and me was over, but our story, was just beginning.